Welcome. Let's do some data viz creation. So I'm going to go through 4 practice examples here in Tableau. So if I give you a data set in Tableau, the first thing you're going to want to do is, like always, identify at what level each row your data is. And we can see here that property repeats across months. And so our data for this Pueblo hotel data is at the property month level. So knowing that, that's going to be important when we actually start dragging fields in here. So at the top, I'll give you a question. Is there a correlation between the number of hours that housekeeping works and the housekeeping staff turnover? So because you know your data and you've studied the data dictionary, you'll be like, hey, housekeeping, the number of hours they work. I have a variable for that. It's right here, number of hours worked. So I'm going to double click on that. And the other variable is turnover. And you're like, hey, I have a variable for that. And so we double click on housekeeping turnover. And because they're both continuous, they're down here under the measures section. And we know that they're continuous. Number of hours is continuous. Turnover is like the number of people leaving, or maybe it's a ratio. Those are continuous. We're okay with it creating a scatter plot, but you can see this doesn't look much like a scatter plot. That's because it's aggregating those and creating one point, and we don't want it to do that. We want to create a scatter plot so that we can see correlation. And right here, I'm going to switch the axes because it makes more sense to me that the more you work your housekeeping staff, the more likely you're going to have turnover. If there's a way of causation, it's going to go from working long hours to turnover. You can make arguments for the other way, but I'm going to go ahead and switch them. All right, so now that we've got that, let's actually make it a little easier to see if there's a trend. We're going to click on our analytics pane, and we're going to drag trend line in, and we'll just stick with the linear trend. And you can see right here, there's a slight down slope, but it's really, if you take a look at your R squared, it's really small. So there isn't much explanation between housekeeping hours worked and housekeeping turnover. But that right there answers the question. And then I may want to make this a little easier to read. I'm maybe select on format and make these labels a little bit bigger. Could do the same thing over here. Click there, then click font. Make those labels a little bit bigger. And there I have an answer to that question. So that's our first question. The second question, does the number of hours worked by maintenance impact customer satisfaction? So impact is kind of a key word here. Like impact is kind of like influence, which kind of means kind of causation. Is there a relationship? How are we measuring hours worked? That's continuous. How are we measuring customer satisfaction? In a survey, probably on a scale of 1 to 5, that would be considered a continuous variable. So I'm going to close my format pane and click back over here to my data. And I'm just going to go find hours worked. Maintenance, I'll double click on it. I'm going to go find satisfaction. As I rolled it up, I did an average of it. And again, I want to unaggregate the measures. Satisfaction is probably the dependent variable, so I'm going to swap the axes, go to my analytics pane, drag in a linear trend line. And you can see there's a slight upward slope, but my R squared isn't that great. So there isn't really a compelling correlation between the number of hours worked by maintenance and the impact that has on customer satisfaction. So again, I'll do a little prettying up. I'm going to make these a little bit bigger. Make it a little easier to read. I mean, you can do the same thing up here to your title. you'll have to right click and format title. Then we'll go title, border. Yeah, that's not as easy. Sometimes it takes a little bit to find format title. I don't have that, so we'll forget about that. I can't remember how we change the font of the title. I think it's probably here, actually. If we double click on it, we can come in here and change it to be a little bit larger. You know, just make it pop out a little bit more. Anyway, minor details. So that's our second question. Let's go on to a different kind of question. What district has the highest number of complaints per month on average? And show the name of the district manager. So if we come back here to our data pane so we can see our fields, well, we're going to want to make groups based on our district manager. It's up here above the gray line because it's categorical. It's more dimension-like. So we double click on that. There's our district managers, and we want the number of complaints. Now remember, I mean, it says here on average, so that should be a hint that we should average them. But remember that these are at the property month level. So if the question was a little bit different and we said, which district has the highest number of total complaints, we'd probably want to sum it. Now this is great, but it'd be nice if we could make it easy to see the district manager that has the highest number of complaints, so we can come up here and sort. That doesn't really quite approach a viz, and so we want some visual aspect that makes things pop. And so one way to do that is to just use color coding. If I come over here to show me and I color code, and I resort highest to lowest, then sometimes it's nice. Blue probably isn't my first choice. Like as that number goes higher, that's a bad thing. So we can use color to indicate that. So if I click on the color square there on the marks palette, I can change this and pull down and do a red. And now as it goes higher, it gets more red. But then if you think about what these numbers mean, remember this is at the property month level. So numbers underneath 1 means that on average, they have less than 1 complaint. That's actually a good thing. So maybe we'd want to actually change the color here. And we could go pull down and let's do something a little more custom. Let's go down here to this custom diverging. And higher numbers will make red. So that's a pretty good red. And lower numbers, let's indicate that they're kind of good. Lower numbers are good, so we'll make that a green. There we go. And now we kind of indicate that. I mean, those colors are a bit ugly, but we could tweak it. Generally, we want them to say, hey, Maria Roth and Timothy Dolan's district, they're not getting many customer complaints. So there we go. And we may want to make this a little bit bigger. There's a couple ways to do that. So when you actually generate these, you could bring it out like that. That's actually not the best way to do this. You'd want to actually change the text size. So if you go to format, we go worksheet, total pane, default, go to our default text size and make it a bit bigger there. There we go. So it's a little easier to read, and then you might have to tweak some of these so you can still see them. Be nice. We can see the whole district manager. So just do a little tweaking, make it a little easier to read. There's another option here too. So if we want to go full-blown viz, what type of viz would be appropriate to show this relationship? This is kind of a ranking relationship. It's a nominal relationship because we're splitting it across a categorical variable. And we know that column charts or bar charts are appropriate for that. And so there's a little bit of preference here, but I'm going to actually change this to be less of a bar chart and more of a column chart, because it just seems more natural. And then I'm going to go ahead and resort. And these are still kind of scrunched up. You can actually come up here to fit the width. And then you'll actually see them pop out. And then this is a little easier. This is a little easier to then export as a PDF. So there we go. Our next one is what states have the highest monthly profits. Indicate the number of properties in the state with the size of the mark. And that last little detail is kind of important. You could do a couple things. One, you might be tempted to do something like this. Let's take state. We're going to drag it to rows. And then we'll take highest monthly profits. We'll double click it. And here it says highest monthly profits. Well, because our data is at the property month level, we have to average for it to make sense. And I'll let you figure out why we want to average and not sum. You need to understand that. And then we could go ahead and make a bar chart. And again, since there's fewer, than like 7, we're going to go ahead and switch it. We can fit it to the width. Okay, and then if we sort the bars, highest to lowest, and maybe this is too wide. We take it back. We can just drag out so that we just get it big enough so that we can see the labels. And then we could go make the labels different. We could change what this says, average profit. We could call it average profit per month to be a little more specific. Change the size of some of these labels. But this part right here that indicate the number of properties in the state with the size of the mark, well, what we want to do is if we then take room rentals, nope, not room rentals, we want profit, and we drag that up to size, nope, we don't want that, sorry. Got to get this straight. Indicate the number of properties in the state. So we'd want to take property ID and drag it to size, and we just want to indicate the number by taking the count distinct. And you can see right here, if we do count distinct, it changes the width of the bars based on the number. So in Texas, we have 78 properties. In New Mexico, we have 16. In Oklahoma, we have 10. And in Colorado, we have 10. But remember our discussion in class, a bar chart, we're trying to indicate the average profit, and it's a one-dimensional. So this is really confusing. So we wouldn't want to do something like this. We wouldn't want to do a bar chart. There's a better way, and we're actually going to kind of violate that whole rule of showing something two-dimensional is actually one-dimensional. So let's try it again. And Tableau will kind of do the right thing. If we say double-click state, it automatically puts it on a map. And since we're in 4 states, it zooms in there. And then if we then come down here to profit, double-click profit, and right by default, it makes profit size. I'm going to go ahead and drag profit up to color. But I don't want to sum it. I want to average it. You can see when we do color, which is fine. We could change the colors. Let's just go ahead and do that. We can say, we're talking about money here, profit, right? So let's give it a green color. On a green scale. There we go. So darker greens. Colorado is one of our most profitable states on average. But we want to indicate the number of properties by the size. So I'm going to take property ID and drag it to size. And notice that it changes it so that we have a circle mark there. And notice that you can actually see different shades in there. That's because there's multiple properties in New Mexico. You can see them as I zoom into the circle. So I don't want I don't want to count the number of properties. I want to count the number of distinct properties. And so it's showing every property right now. So I'm going to pull down on that and go measure, count the number of distinct. And I'll let you figure out why you want to count the number of distinct here. The hint is go back to your data and look at the property ID column and then think this is at a property month level. And you'll have to come to the conclusion why we want to use count distinct. So that's nice. They're kind of small, so I'm just going to click on this size and just kind of increase them right here. That's bigger. That'll work. So there you go. Now we have a viz where we can actually say, oh, based on the color, and when you're actually doing this on the project, not necessarily on the exam, you'd want in your viz to make it very clear. You'd put a note in here that size represents the number of properties and color represents the average monthly profit. You'd want to make that clear. So now that we have this, let's just show you, if I can remember, let's say we want to take one of these scatter plots and you got to submit it. And so you're going to go File. Can we actually print to PDF? Let's see how that works. Active sheet. We could do that. Let's go ahead and let's put that on our desktop so we can find it. And when it pops up, oops, let's zoom out. You can see it's got mostly everything there that we need. And it has some notes down here, but you'd want to add a few things and then you could submit this. The other option is, I believe we can go worksheet, copy image. Go ahead and copy it. And you can change what you want to copy, and then I just open Word. And I'm just going to open a blank file. Then you paste it in there. And then you could go File, Save As, right there, Save As Adobe PDF. You may not have that, so you go Save As, and then when you go to Save As, you select PDF. So that's how you're going to turn it into a PDF. So hopefully that's helpful to learn a few tricks about Tableau, and that should get you started practicing for the data viz portion of the exam.